eternal life. Alleluia, alleluia. The Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 13th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now when Judas had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. Now if God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. My little children, I'm with you only a little longer, and you will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. And so I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. For it is by this everyone will know you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. I saw somebody wearing a shirt this week with a comic on it that I hadn't seen for a while. Linus saying, "I love mankind, its people I cannot stand." It comes from a comic earlier in Schultz's career where Linus's sister Lucy goes up to him and says, "You want to be a doctor? Ha! You could never be a doctor. You know why? You don't love humankind." And Linus says, "I love mankind, its people I cannot stand." Isn't that the way of it? It's easy to love people in general, love humankind. But the minute you start thinking about certain individuals that annoy or that you don't agree with, it's really kind of easy to think about those individuals that you'd rather frog in the arm, or maybe in the face, than to sit next to you in the pew. And yet, the family of God, from the beginning, has been filled with these moments, where people like Peter were called to go out and take this message that would save to those very people, those people who were profane to them. And it's amazing to me how we continue to struggle with this very problem of distinction. This idea that we who hunger for love, we who hunger and want to know that we are worthy of love and connection, that we continue to struggle with disconnection and struggle with devaluing and disconnecting others, with trying to draw a line and saying, they're out while I'm in. And isn't it always interesting that those people who do just that always seem to find a way that, well, they're always on the inside, aren't they? I mean, it's like, they're out, but I try hard enough to be in. Oh, I'm not perfect, but fill in the blank. It's as if proper human behavior is the key to our relationship with God, when we know it's not. And yet we fear all those others. We fear being connected to them is somehow going to drag us down. We fear people who are different than us, but it's not just that, is it? We even fear people who are like us, but maybe just different enough. A friend of mine's been doing this cross-generational ministry stuff. And they did a Bible study recently where they required older people to be in relationship and in discussion with younger people. And then they interviewed them afterwards. And they talked to the younger people first, and they said, so what'd you think? How was your conversation? And they said it was interesting. And you know what? The older people weren't so bad. And they were like, well, what do you mean? They said, well, you know, they weren't mean or judgmental like we expected them to be. And then they went and talked to the older folks, and they said, well, it was very interesting. They had a lot to say, and the kids weren't so bad. And they said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, they weren't disrespectful or demeaning. What they discovered is that in this church, this small church in Iowa, these people had been afraid to even talk to one another. Even though they'd been sitting in the pews, even though a lot of these kids had been baptized right there in front of them, and they'd agreed to help raise them in the faith, they feared them because they were teenagers, or they feared them because they were those old folks who'd been around longer than them. I love mankind. It's people that I fear. It's people that we make distinctions from, isn't it? It's those lines that we draw. It's those people that we don't want to share our faith with. It's those people that we don't want to offend. And so we keep our story and our collective joy and our collective pain to ourselves. And yet, isn't that what we're meant exactly to share? I mean, we go to the ball game and we'll sing with people there, take me out to the ball game. We love that. We'll go to the bar and we'll sing Sweet Caroline. Thank you. And we come here. Oh, we come here. And what do we enjoy? We love to sing with people who we wouldn't even share a cup of coffee with. And we love to turn and share peace because we need it so darn much when we go out those doors. And we share collective moments of joy and collective moments of pain because we've all gone through them. And what do we get out of it? We build this resiliency, this peace and power, this presence that nobody can understand. It doesn't make sense. But we all build it up so that we can go out and deal with the day, deal with the surgeries, deal with the diagnoses, deal with the craziness, deal with the chaos, deal with the rain and not putting in the seed, deal with the pain and not being able to answer what's coming next. God connects us in love to build up this resiliency for us so that we can offer it to others. Because the world is really good at separating us from each other. But we are called to break beyond that and show people that Christ is calling them to something more. Calling them beyond dealing with what they're dealing with on their own. Calling them to lift others' value every day. Because the world won't do it. The world will tell you you're only valuable if you buy the right thing, or if you do the right thing, or if you hang out with the right people. But God lifts others' value every day and in every way. God just loves. And God connects us in this indelible, undestroyable, even by death love. And calls us to do the same and be that presence. God calls us not just to love mankind, but to love people. To go to the person who is hurting, not just to love the sinner and hate the sin, but to look beyond it all. To not worry about what's profane or not profane, but just to name their name and let it be safe in our mouth. To say, God has called you by name and you belong to God. So that we can lift others' value in every way and every day. You are called to find the face of God in everyone you meet. And to love people with your hands and with your feet. God called Peter to spread a blanket and to eat things that hadn't been eaten before because they were afraid that it would make them ritually unclean. What are we being called to do and to be different than we've ever been before? To break out of these walls and to be something we are not now to people who need God's love most. Who's missing from us right now that needs that love, that could be here today if you would go and lift their value for them because they need you to be that love? You come here because you hunger for that love. You come here because you hunger for him and he gives himself to you. What will you do when you are filled with him this week to surprise yourself? To surprise others with God's act of love. We are called to take the resiliency that we are given and to take it into the world. And I pray, and I hope that today you taste and feel that in the bread and in the cup, and that it fills you to overflowing, so that you take it into the world with you, so that you can lift others, so they know they're valuable every day. Would you please stand as you are able?